welcome to Gruen. We'll meet our panel in a moment. But first, the government has announced they'll be fighting terrorism using facial recognition. But we're worried one brand has already found a way around it.
I'm going to show you something that's totally going to change the way you fight acne and help your skin get healthier. The Neutrogena Light Therapy Acne Mask.
Oh, wow, I can't wait to see Pauline Hanson wear one in the Senate. So how does it work?
First, wash your face. Then, put the mask on. How do I look?
How do you look? Terrifying! Wow, what a great product. Gets rid of your acne by covering up your face. There's more.
Simply push the button and let it work for 10 minutes. You don't have to look at the time, it automatically turns itself off.
Leave it on for 10 minutes. OK, why does the timer say 30? I think you need to check it. If her skin gets any clearer, she'll be invisible. The good news is it doesn't have to interrupt your busy lifestyle. Yeah, you know, all the day-to-day stuff. Weld, join Daft Punk, be an axe murderer. And I love that she tries FaceTiming. I think that's called mask timing. Here's a tip. If you both have a mask covering your face, maybe just call. The great news is this product might actually work. How else do you explain Ned Kelly's Baby Soft Skin? And it only costs $69.95. How do I know that? I bought one. Just what Australian TV needs. Even whiter faces. This is actually the new Star Wars trailer. Luke, I'm your other father. We're voting yes. Time to welcome our panel from PwC, Russell Howcroft, and from Inside Your Brain, redesigning it, Todd Sampson. Joining them from One Green Bean, Claire Salvetti, and a new Gruen friend from Cummins and Partners, Lucy Cochrane. Welcome. OK, what's a product 90% of us have in our fridges and we consume 15.9 million of a day? Eggs. And that doesn't even include all the eggs we throw at other people's houses. So what does advertising have to do with the price of eggs? Let's take a look.
Eggs, large, from WA, free range. So those and those. What does free range actually mean? What about hormones? Is bigger better? When were these laid? Where were these laid? Better check for cracked ones, stuck to the box ones. Oh, I don't like the way that chicken is looking at me. This farmer's hair is too neat. Are you even a real farmer? Are you?
Reduce egg aisle anxiety. Choose golden eggs with confidence. Visit knowyoureggs.com.au to find out more.
You think that's bad? You should see her at Easter. Egg aisle anxiety. It's something I made up to get my weed card in America, but Lucy, is it a real thing?
Yes, I do think it's a real thing. This category is almost impossible to navigate. It's got so many confusing, conflicting claims, and it's really stressful. Like, most of the time you should be able to just go there at a category, pick it up and be out of there in 3 seconds, whereas this one, it's really hard to make a decision. And if you're one of the 60% of Australians that do actually want to buy an egg from a chicken that hasn't been tortured, then it's really hard to make the call on which one hasn't been tortured. I mean, I think maybe they should, that's how they should arrange the aisle, like just in torture, like have like least tortured one.
Yeah. I actually love the egg aisle. I I don't have egg aisle anxiety. I actually love going there because you can just see the pricing's very clear, packaging is clear. All these people competing for, they're trying to scream out to you, pick me. And, they're all in increments. So you can have something which is less tortured, there's less of a price, more tortured, even cheaper. I actually enjoy going to the egg aisle, but I get that they would have done the research and said, you know what, this is so confusing, yeah?
Choice stress is a real thing in a supermarket. Like, cognitively, we can only compare maybe 5 products, and most people just give up at 3. But on average, there are 70,000 products in the supermarket. So people definitely suffer from stress. I'm not certain egg stress, it's a low involvement category. It's a category, well, it's a relatively low involvement, not for the hen, but it's low involvement for everyone else. But it's a low involvement and low price, so I don't think people are suffering from a huge amount. But remember, too much choice works in favour of the retailer, right? Because when shoppers get a bit confused, they move to impulse purchasing. And impulse purchasing it's impulsive for us as shoppers, but it's very strategic for the retailers.
I don't think there's any such thing as low involvement products. It is I genuinely think that when you're walking down the aisle, the supermarket aisle, every single purchase does involve some form of thought.
No, but relative to purchasing a car.
I know when I'm buying a car, I'm like, is this free range?
Yeah.
I don't want a factory car. So many egg cartons in that ad. Pinks, blues, yellows. Claire, what difference does the colour of the packaging make?
Well, you can just see that when you go into the egg aisle, they all look the same, right? There might be lots of different reasons for them being different, but when you look at eggs, they are universally very similar. And the egg cartons, there's not much you can do with them. Again, they're very similar. So what have you got to play with? Not much. So you look at the colour, and the colour's a really interesting thing. Different colours elicit different feelings from people. So you look at the colour blue, and you think, oh, that feels sincere and trustworthy. Yellow is about optimism and warmth, and pink's about creativity, and that's why I'm not sure it's in the egg aisle. But if I was an egg producer, I'd be choosing the blue cartons because I want people to be trustworthy, and also blue is a universally most popular colour in the world by both men and women.
Yeah, colour works really well because it works subconsciously for most people. We recognise the colour and then we make decisions based on that. I've seen studies that say 90% of impulse purchases are done on colour alone, and a huge amount of people buy products that they've never heard of before just by how they look. So looks really make a difference.
You can't...
I don't relate to that at all, to be honest with you. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That ad is about choice, but in reality, 3 big brands dominate 70% of the egg industry. The only egg I can name is Humpty Dumpty. Todd, does egg brand loyalty exist?
I think for eggs, there's little to no brand loyalty. In fact, most people wouldn't even know the brand of the eggs they have, but there is loyalty to how the egg is farmed. So whether it's caged, we know up to 30% of people will only buy free-range eggs. But that leaves 70% that are not loyal to any specific thing, that sort of shop and move around. So I think loyalty exists, but it's very small.
Yeah, there's a lot of research now that's saying that loyalty is overrated. Yeah, the notion of loyalty in a marketing sense isn't really what you should be doing. You should be all about reach, i.e. telling as many people as you possibly can that you exist, and recency, right? So when I know about you and you're there in front of me. So if you think that it's about loyalty marketing, you're probably going to spend money in the wrong direction.
9 out of 10 people would prefer to buy locally sourced produce as well. So it's really important that the eggs are actually saying where they're from, because if you're in that kind of aisle, you'll go for someone that has been created locally.
But do you know what's interesting about that? So 90% of shoppers say they want free-range eggs. 90% of shoppers, multiple research studies, 90% free-ranged. Yet half of all eggs purchased are caged. So there is a big difference, and we know this from the research we do in the industry. There's a huge difference between what people say and do. So publicly and in research, they'll say all of these things. Quietly, they will choose using different criteria.
Yeah, but you know what? 60% of Australian households will suffer serious bill shock. If a $400 bill comes in that you're not expecting, 60% of households will really struggle with that bill. So that's why caged eggs still have a market. Yeah, it's $2.85 for a dozen, and a dozen goes a long way for feeding your family.
Caged eggs make up just under 50% of all egg sales, down from 75% a decade ago. Here's an online video trying to persuade us to stick with caged.
A lot of fun, actually. I mean, we still played with Barbie dolls and everything at home, but my sister and I got the joys of getting lost in ditches and tunnels, and I have fallen in chicken manure a couple times. Birds are beautiful little creatures, but they don't like to be played with. They don't like to be touched. They're not like my puppy at home. By not having any handling of the eggs, it means we can prevent any salmonella outbreak. By not touching the birds, we can make sure that they're not given diseases, and we find the overall bird is happy and stress-free, which is good for us and good for them.
Oh, so happy and stress-free. That's why I like to take my holidays in a cage. Later in that spot, she says this.
So in turn, that'll bring that paddock to plate concept to life.
Paddock to plate, I think she means prison to poach. The footage of the cages is pretty confronting. Russell, would they have been better off not showing it?
It is an odd one, isn't it, Will? I mean, as you say, that caged is going down in terms of sales. In fact, for the first time this year, it's less than the others. I've worked on the creation of an egg brand called Liberty Eggs, which we did in combination with RSPCA. And what I found with the owners, the farm owners, they genuinely love their chickens. And they literally try and find a way to get that mix right, where they want to have barn laid, they want to have free range, but to do that, the costs obviously increase dramatically. So they need to try and get this balance right. So I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, look, we do love our birds, yeah, but we sort of got to play this way to be in business.
Yeah, I don't know, like that's long format storytelling. But if they're going to go long format, they're going to have to show some of the truth. And the truth is they're in the cages. And I think that they did that super clean. That looks super clean in that ad. And also, you don't really notice that the real thing in cages is they live in a space of roughly an iPad, so they could barely move. And that's the thing that you don't get a feel of with all the happiness that's in that ad.
I do agree that truth is really important when you're telling a story. The thing that I find quite interesting about that is it's almost like she's oversharing, because she's talking about disease and salmonella, and in the next shot you're seeing someone tucking into an egg, and you kind of go, I don't want to know about that when I'm eating, thank you.
And the choice of a female is not a small thing as part of the strategy of this ad. So it's harder to hate people than it is to hate a company. So that's the first, put a spokesperson in front. It's harder to hate a female, full stop. It's almost impossible to hate a female farmer. I mean, that is the holy grail of spokespeople. And so
I'd like you to say, hi, Mum.
I bet that farmer's also got barn laid and free range, and so perhaps what they should have done is shown the depth of their flock. And genuinely, I would have loved to have seen how, they would love their animals. It's almost, for me, it's almost like God as a marketer when it comes to eggs.
I mean, I guess we were always going here at some stage, but...
These things...
Go on.
Well, chickens are awesome, aren't they?
Yep.
In that every single day, if you're in the business of marketing eggs,
yeah,
you've got these birds. If you look after them every day, it's a little. Here's $1. Here's another $1. Here's another $1, and like forever. It's a business you can have into eternity, because into eternity you're going to have these chickens. They're going to be laying eggs. That are going to be allowing you to package them up, to put into a supermarket, to feed families.
Russell, part of me just died.
Well, I'm serious about that.
I know you're serious about that.
I am, right?
Russell, 6 billion chicks get killed a year.
Yeah, no, because the blokes don't lay eggs. That's why.
Also, I just love your theory of like...
happened to
and
them
on
then?
the 6th day, God invented marketing. Which came first, the chicken or the ad? Free-range eggs will cost you around $2 more per dozen than caged. Lucy, are people really willing to pay more for ethical choices?
Well, they are. I mean, in the egg aisle, it's increasing year on year. I think people are a lot more aware of where their food and products come from, and they're demanding more around that. I think the statistics show in the younger generations are much more conscious of that. And then there's also the human truth that there's a difference between who we are and who we want to be. And ethical consumption's really convenient because we don't have to change our behaviour, but we can buy something that plugs the gap between who we are and who we want to be, and we don't have to sacrifice anything.
Yeah.
So, like, we all know that person that drives an SUV, leaves all their lights on, eats loads of meat, and then goes to the shop and gets his free-range eggs and puts them in the basket and feels really smug about it. And
he probably drives his trolley around for a bit longer just to make everyone see that he's got the...
Yeah. So it's great, but in terms of human behaviour, it's a bit of a guilt tax for being awful.
The great thing about...
I totally relate to that, though. I host Gruen, but I watch The Bachelorette.
I mean, eggs are an awesome way to acquire ethical products because the difference is only $2. Yeah, so it's not. It is a very simple way to apply your desire to buy ethical goods.
But it makes them cross because it's the same bottom line, and that's so unethical in itself.
But ethical pricing is an interesting thing when you're trying to work out the prices. So you imagine they have to say, what is the maximum amount people are willing to pay for guilt? You know, so you're saying, how much will they pay to stop for suffering? You know, that's the basic equation. And unfortunately, the answer to that is not much. The research is pretty clear. If you put a huge price differential between the two of them, you will still get the 85% of people saying they want to buy the free-range eggs, but you would find an increase in the cheaper eggs being sold. For many reasons, that's right. Some economic, but some people would just be like, no, I'm not buying a more expensive egg. Yeah. $3, a suffering of an animal versus $3 might be too much.
Can I ask this? Because I want the most, ethical ones, the nicest to the chicken ones, but I don't really have time to look at the labels and stuff, so I always just buy the most expensive ones and assume they treated... is that a thing that people do?
Well, I certainly do that as well. I'm terrified.
Yeah. And it is also that is also reality. Yeah, if you're buying the most expensive, you are buying the chickens that have been looked after the best. Will you can go home and sleep easy.
Well, it's like wine with pricing. Never buy the most expensive. That's for idiots. And never buy the cheapest. Go for the one just below most expensive.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that's the case in eggs.
I actually just buy the cheap wine and the expensive bottle and get 2 straws.
Yeah, smart.
Woolies, Aldi, McDonald's and Hungry Jack's have all promised to go entirely cage egg free. Here's how Hungry Jack's is spreading the word.
My name is Dion Bajaya. I'm a truck driver and I deliver eggs to Hungry Jack's every single day. I've been delivering eggs for 11 years. I usually get up about 3, 4 o'clock. I do a walk around of the truck. Clean truck, clean driver, clean product. If I'm coming up to a bumpy road, I'll just get out and make sure the road's nice and smooth, and if there is any potholes, I just try and go through as slow as I can, just to give the eggs a smooth ride. If you drive too fast, the eggs will fall over and explode. I suppose it happens when you work in the egg industry for so long. I enjoy driving a lot, getting out and about. You do get to know a lot of the customers, you build a relationship. Thanks, mate. Mornings don't get any better than this.
Firstly, Dion, you're adorable. Secondly, mornings definitely get better than that, mate. In fact, there's a girl called Danielle I might hook you up with. She's got an egg farm. I think you guys will be happy. Todd, is this an admission that Hungry Jack's used to use terrible eggs?
This ad's got nothing to do with promoting cage-free eggs. This has got everything to do with food credentials. And most fast food companies struggle with people believing their food is real, regardless if it is or if it isn't. So they have a stream of advertising which is about giving people permission, giving mums permission to go in to Hungry Jack's. So this is a classic paddock to plate, our food is real, it's whole eggs. So that's just a subset of their overall strategy of flogging people food.
And it's like they've taken all the cues that you would around taking care around a farm and they've just applied it to a truck. And it's almost like they don't want to show the farm or where the chickens are because that will make them more accountable. Like they're not going to commit to anything. So if they show a free-range chicken, they're going to get pulled up on it. So they were like, oh, well, what are we going to talk about? Why don't we talk about the delivery system? So I think it's weird. And someone needs to tell that guy that they're not alive. Like if he cracks an egg, no one gets hurt. Like they're destined for a burger.
It's already happened.
Yeah, I was going to say also they probably should just pack him in a way that he doesn't have to stop for potholes.
I like what they've done here because I think it's quite refreshing from a quick service restaurant brand like Hungry Jack's. But what I find interesting is that they talk about being cage-free, but they don't actually say what the eggs are. So are the eggs any different or any better, really? We don't know.
There are many ways to help you make egg purchasing decisions. Choice has an app.
Use Clucker to help you separate the bad eggs from the good ones.
Mother Clucker. Some farms even let you live stream their chickens. Don't keep watching though. They can't lay when you're watching. It's like my second favourite channel behind the ABC. Australian Eggs is the industry body. Here's their latest ad.
There's one breakfast that's unbeatable for protein. It beats porridge, it beats muesli, it beats baked beans. In fact, when it comes to protein, it beats all these breakfasts. It's eggs, of course. Unbeatable.
Unbeatable. Surely beatable is the one thing an egg needs to be. Russell, why choose that word?
Well, the language of advertising is all about wordplay or puns. And so this is... See, I see this as a classic advertising line, which is why it's highly memorable and I'm sure it's going to work extremely well for them.
Yeah, beatable is a weasel word. So it sort of... It appears true, but you're not going to get any legal trouble with it, which is basically why they're using it. You notice that they don't use anything like most nutritious or healthiest because they can't.
No, because
so
if
they make broader claims that that are undefensible, really, then that's fine.
They have sat around. They've said, "Oh, hang on a second, we can say unbeatable."
And nobody will challenge that.
Yeah, no one will challenge it. But it's not because they're trying to be weasels. It's because beet and egg is something that people go, "Oh, that makes sense to me," and then they can justify why it's unbeatable because they give us the facts. And for the people that like their eggs, they'll go, how unreal is this? I can have more.
There is a bit of science behind that in terms of the brain is made up of a network of associations, and if you can pick things that are already associated, then half of your work is done. So those lines are more likely to stick.
I can just imagine the creative boys getting some big backslaps when they came up with that. You know, it's like, check out my pun, guys. But I do think that puns are quite risky because some people hate them. You know, they're divisive, they're like Vegemite. And so if you're going to use it, then at risk, because some people are just going to think that's a bit crap.
What about the logo? OK, every day. What an inspiring slogan. It narrowly beat out eggs. They'll do. Lucy, what are they reassuring us about?
Well, eggs got a really bad rap back in the 90s. They were seen as being high cholesterol, too fatty, and everyone was told do not eat eggs very often. So I think it's overcoming the hangover of that and saying it's giving people permission. It's OK to eat them every day. And the other thing in this ad is that they're trying to change the occasion. So eggs are probably eaten on a Saturday morning, a Sunday morning as a treat, and what they're trying to do is move that occasion to be a weekday breakfast meal, and that's why they visually associated it with all those weekday breakfasts, so that when someone goes to reach for their cornflakes in the morning, hopefully they'll think of an egg instead.
Apparently eggs are OK every day, but there's a controversial new Netflix film produced by Joaquin Phoenix with a very different message.
I never really thought about eggs much. I just thought of them as a standard part of a healthy diet. But then I found a study suggesting that eating just 1 egg a day can be as bad as smoking 5 cigarettes per day for life expectancy.
And Joaquin would know he's smoked a lot of eggs. The documentary is called What the Health. It has made headlines and celebrities like Miley Cyrus and a Hemsworth have been spruiking it too. A Hemsworth, not the good one. Claire, should Big Egg be worried?
If I was Big Egg, I would definitely be worried. And that's because they've used smoke and mirrors expertly. So they've got this documentary and they have a headline and it's about comparing eggs to cigarettes, which is a highly controversial thing to say. It's a headline grabber. And when you hear it, you think, geez, like, I didn't know that. It would make me think twice about buying eggs. But the reality is that when you dig a bit deeper into the research behind it and the documentary itself, it's funded, produced, created by vegans. So it's almost propaganda because it is so one-sided. The research doesn't even include eggs in it, so you can't hold that up at all. And the thing that is most concerning is that most people, when they consume media, they'll read a headline, the first couple of paragraphs, they might watch the trailer, they're not going to do due diligence about really finding out about the truth behind it. So this could do a lot of damage, and it doesn't need to.
I can't see how it's possible that anyone that sees a film that says an egg is worse for you than these cigarettes, how anyone could possibly begin to believe that.
People think George Clooney is a doctor.
Yeah. It's just not.
Hang on, wait. George Clooney's not a doctor? And these egg patches are for nothing? Australian Eggs is also busy barking up a different marketing tree.
Cook up some extra eggs every week, twice a week, and feed them to your dog, and you're going to have a very healthy and happy dog. What do you reckon, Zach? Yep, thought so.
Firstly, I'm not taking advice from a guy who thinks his dog talks to him. Secondly, that'd be a lot more impressive if dogs didn't eat everything. Kit Kat owns your breaks, and up until now, Eggs have owned breakfast. Todd, could dog dinner work too?
Well, these companies, they have, to make money, they either have to increase their margin, their profit, by putting the price up, difficult to do for egg businesses, or they increase the volume to get their revenue up. This, potentially, although the ad is not very good, but this, selling it to dogs could do both, really, because we know from research that people are willing to spend more on their pets than their children. So we could probably put the price of eggs up and sell more volume. Yeah. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, and maybe reverse the declining caged. Yeah, because in the end, if you're making that analysis as a pet owner, you might go, hang on a second, I can get a dozen of these for $2.50, and I can feed my dog, you know, healthy product, good protein. I can cook. It's always nice to prepare food, even for your dog. And so, no, this is potentially a very, very clever idea.
It's unless your dog's really ethical, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll just do anything to get my dog off the smokes.
Yeah.
Figuring out what eggs to buy is difficult, which is why I love that live farm camera we looked at earlier. Can we check in and see what the chickens are up to now? Oh, no, mate! No! That's the dog's dinner! No! Hang on, let's check another camera. Let's check.
Yummy, yummy. Chickens eating chicken.
Oh, no! That's your buddy! Tastes like human! Anything else happening on the farm? Play funky chicken. What's happening now? That's a duck, but at least it's free range. Oh, hold on, it's night time. Wouldn't the chickens be in bed? Let's see. Oh, hang on. Is that chicken watching The Bachelorette? Should be watching Gruen. That chicken was way too into that. Back in your cage, mate. And now the pitch, our weekly mission to sell the unsellable. I'm a man, and as a busy man, the only thing worse than being sick is going to the doctor. Just over 40% of men visit the doctor every year, compared to nearly 60% of women. So we've asked our agencies to help break this bad habit and convince blokes to go to the doctor. Can they do it? Please welcome from Ward 6, Hugh Fitzharding, and from POM, Matt Holmes. Welcome. Hugh, what's your diagnosis?
We thought if a man works hard all his life and doesn't get a health check and a checkup, there can be unforeseen consequences.
Oh, let's have a look.
Brian's worked hard, earned every penny, built his dream home, bought the ultimate fishing boat, sports car, man cave, and beautiful wife to boot. All for the lucky Alejandro to enjoy. Don't be like Brian. Have regular checkups and live to enjoy everything you've worked for.
Good job. Matt, what would you prescribe?
We looked into humanising a powerful statistic to move people.
Let's have a look.
Well, it's the first week the kids haven't had school, so it would be good to do something with the missus, take the kids out.
Russell, both did a great job, I thought. Which did you prefer?
I also liked them both, Will, but I thought number 2 actually would get me to go to the doctor. So I should say thanks. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Russell. Lucy?
Yeah, I agree. They're both great, but in terms of effectiveness and response, I think number 2 was really powerful.
Claire, what about you?
Really interesting, different responses. I like the tagline of number 1.
Last but not least, Todd?
I thought they were both great. I really liked the second one, but I'm going to go with the first one.
Oh, that means... Oh, there we go. It's a tie. That means that we have a trophy that splits in half. Which is... That's good. I like this. This is a good result. There we go. Congratulations. If you were a company that hadn't put a big TV campaign to air in 30 years, there'd probably be a lot of pressure to get it right. Here's how mining giant BHP handled that big challenge.
If you have money in a super fund, chances are you have money in BHP.
You've got to have a long-term plan, otherwise you'll go nowhere.
So while you're planning where you want to be in 10, 20, 30 years from now, so are we.
I need them to make money for my super.
So we believe if we think big, our best days are ahead of us. Think big. Think big.
Think big. Think big. Think big. Think big holes in the ground. BHP mines coal, iron ore, copper and nickel and drills for oil and gas. It's not in the business of superannuation. Lucy, why is it mentioned 3 times in that ad?
This ad is essentially a 30-second romantic ode to trickle-down economics. It's basically saying BHP do all of these, as we know, things that aren't so great for the environment. They make a huge amount of money and they've got a reputation for that. And they've also got a reputation for doing a few PR disastery things like destroying a Brazilian village and potentially, allegedly, not paying some taxes. So there's a lot of bad news around them. And this is their way of saying, well, actually, we make a lot of money, but 1 out of 3 Australians are invested in this company, so you're actually benefiting from that. So it's sort of implicating the everyday Aussie in their business.
I think they're trying to BHP is the 4th largest company in Australia, $60 billion of revenue. If you live in Australia and you have superannuation, chances are you own a piece of BHP. And the strategy here is to ground it back into Australia. And it's an ownership thing. So they're kind of transferring the ownership. They're saying that you own this company, not us. And that's a big part of the strategy. The other thing is financial future. Because superannuation, for a lot of people, is an anxiety thing about what's my future going to be. And they're linking the success of BHP to your financial future.
Yeah, they've also decided to do it because they dropped the Billiton name. Because, yeah, 30 years ago, they did spend a huge amount of money informing us all that they were the big Australian. And everyone that was alive at that period of time will remember the campaign. And they used to spend $1 million a month in the 1980s saying, we are the big Australian. So, as I say, emotionally, I think they would have thought, you know what, let's use the drop of Billiton as an opportunity to re-engage.
I want to talk about this moment.
I need them to make money for my super.
Nothing says support future generations like digging up coal. That seems to be saying believe in BHP or your future is stuffed. Claire, why does it feel like a threat?
It feels like a threat because they are being like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And what I mean by that is that initially you kind of can see a value exchange. You know, they're sharing information with you. You probably didn't know about your super. That's quite useful. Thanks very much, BHP. But underlying that is this messaging that implies that whether you agree with their practice of work or not, they have quite literally got your future in their hands.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a threat, and in many ways it is a threat. But the reality of this campaign is it's BHP that's under threat. So there's a big hedge fund in America which is attacking BHP and they want to overhaul it. And this is the first time in 30 years that BHP is communicating to shareholders, to us, not because it wants to, but because it has to. BHP's broken up into, it's 30% owned by retail investors like us through our superannuation and 70% owned by institutions. And that is in the UK, in the US, and here and other places. They always communicate to the 70%. They almost never communicate to the 30%. But because they're under attack, they need to shore up the shareholders. And this campaign is aimed directly, for the first time in 30 years, tactically, at their shareholders.
Yeah, and it is all about goodwill. Go back a generation and everyone knew what BHP's role in Australia was. It is really interesting that information has sort of left the lexicon, you know, and it's important, I think, that we do understand that. You know, they paid, $65 billion in taxes in the last 10 years. They actually export their technology, their capability around the world. It is important what they do. It is important that they put goodwill into their business.
BHP's leading man is Richie. A quick Google search tells me he works at the company's South Walker Creek mine in central Queensland. Todd, how would they have cast him, and couldn't they find an employee who could, you know, smile?
I actually don't think he's a bad choice. They would have had a good idea who they were going to use. And the reason they use real people or employees is it increases believability. And also, it decreases risk, because we know with the transparency online now what happens if you use a fake tradie or if you use a fake person in the ad. The risk of getting an actor to do a slightly better performance versus getting a real person is it's too high. So you would definitely choose a real person.
Yeah. And even the not smiling has everything to do with that realness. So everything about this ad is saying we're not this big faceless corporate, we're the everyman like you, and they've picked real people to appear in their ads. And, you know, if he was smiling and had this perfect performance, then it would give across that fakeness. So I think that's probably quite a purposeful decision.
No women, though. I was really surprised. I assume there are multiple ads and the rest have women in them. But
no, there are plenty of ads with women in them, and BHP also has a 50-50 ratio in terms of hires. In fact, they've got a fantastic record.
They don't mind if you BHP standing up or sitting down.
No.
This phrase appears several times in that ad.
So we believe if we think big, think big. Think big.
Russell, why keep anxiously repeating your slogan?
Well, there's an old slogan in the Mojo playbook, Mojo being the agency in the 80s, which is if you repeat, 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 you'll be sweet, sweet, sweet. And this is Mojo playbook. It could have been made in that era. And they want to have a leadership claim around think big, and it will stick.
I don't know. Like, I compare that to that think big. I compare it to Apple's think different. And Apple's think different is about appealing to kind of a rebellious spirit. Well, this just feels like corporate speak to me.
Yeah, but you are right. It is around corporate. It is definitely around corporate culture. And then the idea that staff see the advertising and then reflect the behaviour as they go to work every day, that's proven. That's what happens. So if you're BHP, you do want your staff to think big.
BHP might be happy with think big, but I'm not sure it's all that original. It's been used to sell chalky milk.
Think big.
Big W.
Think big.
And fantastic furniture.
To think big and buy big.
Think big is all over the world too. Panasonic India.
Think big.
A South Korean book company. A Bermuda telco.
Think big.
Peruvian cola.
Think big.
And an Indian university.
Think big. Lovely professional university.
Who wouldn't want to go to a lovely professional university? It's a staple of political campaigns too.
In Texas, we think big.
Think big! But the origins of think big go back even further, to a very familiar face.
Over 20 years ago, I coined the expression think big, and it's been a part of my life ever since. It's also come true. I became an even bigger success after I said it. To me, it's very simple. If you're going to be thinking anyway, you might as well think big.
I love the line, if you're going to be thinking anyway. That's just about all for tonight. Please thank our panel, Russell, Lucy, Claire and Todd. We'll leave you with another ad you couldn't make in 2017, the latest instalment in our compendium of wrong. Charity campaigns are one of the less objectionable forms of advertising, and this next one from 1986 is no exception. But before you see why it belongs firmly in this segment, and you will, it's important to note they got a lot of things right. The catchy jingle, the memorable slogan, the diversity of the cast, the cute kids, the heart and the hair. They might have got one thing wrong, though. We'll see you next week.
On the street, don't know what to say. I want to show respect, but I always turn away. So bust down those barriers. Bust down those barriers.
At 7 p.m. Saturday, April 19, bind up the arm you normally use for a sling, and you'll know what it's like to be disabled. Be a barrier buster.